Hi, everybody. It's been a while, but I'm back with you here on Viking.TV for another live conversation. And my guest today is a delightful and talented British artist, sculptor, and cartoonist. She was born in Africa, but moved to England as a young child, and then spent part of that childhood growing up in an enormous but crumbling stately home in Yorkshire. And that home and the family within it became the inspiration for a hugely successful cartoon series, which is syndicated around the world, and today its creator is recognized as one of Britain's leading cartoonists. And to tell us how it happened, and whatever else you'd like to talk about, it's my pleasure to introduce to you my guest today, the fabulous Annie Tempest. Annie, welcome to In Conversation. Lovely to see you. You're looking amazing. Yeah, you look great.
Thank you, Alastair.
Annie, I think there's something that I found always rather fascinating about cartoonists, because I've always imagined them as being rather isolated and solitary creatures, working alone in small dark rooms, and almost always men. I get the impression that you're none of those things, but is any of that true as a generalization?
Absolutely. It was a very male preserve when I started. I think there were two other women cartoonists, and yeah, that was difficult. In the old days when I used to go to Fleet Street, when Fleet Street was still operating, and my day used to be over by 11 o'clock in the morning. I used to do my cartoon, take it into the editor, him look at 3 of them and choose one. And then all the men cartoonists would go off to the pub and get completely sozzled. And it was a difficult world to be in, for sure. So yeah, it was like that. There are more women in the field now. It is still very much a male preserve. And yes, we are miserable old sods who live alone on the whole. And that's because I think, we're observers in a way. And a lot of the time is spent thinking and working out how people are and how we're going to make that. We communicate in a different way, I think. Yeah. But I suppose I am quite a loner, but I also love being social. I just need a lot of alone time to do the thinking. So yeah, I think your preconceptions are pretty right, but we can break the mold a bit.
Well, you're shattering them as you talk, Annie. How did you first get? I mean, I don't think anybody, or maybe they do. Do people go to school and think when they're 16, I know what I want to be. I want to be a cartoonist. I mean, how did you come to do what you do?
Okay, yeah, I think probably there are some people who do, because I've had lots of children come here to ask me to teach them this, that and the other, who've absolutely been sure they want to be cartoonists, but that wasn't me. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I left just after my 16th birthday to live in Paris. I just wanted to have fun. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't want a job. So that's what I did, and I worked as an au pair girl, and only the top 10% of people went to university in those days. I left school in 1976, and I hadn't a clue what I wanted to do. So the people who didn't go to university, basically the women, we trained as secretaries. That's what you did. You went to a secretarial school and you got a job. Well, my father brought me back from Paris, where I was perfectly happy with my lovely Dutch boyfriend, going to jazz dives the whole time. But he said, you've got to come home and earn a living. So I did a secretarial course in Oxford, and I got a temporary job as a typist in a hospital. And then I wasn't interested in the typing, obviously, but I was very interested in watching operations and learning all about that sort of thing, because that was like really exciting. And that's, I suppose, where my interest in anatomy and stuff came. I was fascinated by that. And so, and I mean, typing's easy. I was dyslexic, so I was thought to be rather thick, but I basically didn't read well, but I was perfectly intelligent. So, if I was doing anything hands-on, I could learn. And I learned very quickly, and I loved my jobs, and eventually ended up working. Actually, there's a very funny story. I ended up, the last job I had, which is the office in which I taught myself to draw most of the day, it was a private doctor in Harley Street. And it was an advert in the newspapers, and it said a secretary for top surgeon. And I rang him up, and he said he was a neurologist. And I thought that was a brain doctor, but I'd misheard. He was a plumber. He was a urologist. So I ended up working for a human plumber in Harley Street. Actually, it was bloody fun. It was really good fun. I loved it. And it was there where I was alone in an office for a lot of the time, not in a hospital, but in a private clinic, that I decided I'd have to teach myself to draw. And I used to draw funny cartoons about rude bits and things that urologists do. That's how I started, really.
Because I mentioned, Annie, in the introduction that you're what you're known for is being the creator of an extremely successful cartoon series called Tottering-by-Gently. And it appears in Country Life magazine, and it's been doing that for almost 20 years. And for people watching...
30 years.
Sorry, forgive me, 30 years. For people watching who don't know it, could you give us a little thumbnail description of what Tottering-by-Gently is?
I certainly can. Excuse me. In 1972, my father's older brother died, and I don't know whether you people from America understand the system of primogeniture, which is estates passing only to the firstborn male, regardless of their birth order. And my father was not the firstborn male in my family. He was the secondborn, which is why he was banished to the colonies and why I was born in Africa. So in 1972, my father's older brother died, and he, being the next male in the line of the Tempest family, it suddenly inherited. So at the age of 12, we were moved en masse to this very rundown, stately home, sort of like, what's that program? What's that program that everybody watches? Downton Abbey. Yeah, like that.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like that. Massive. I don't know. I think we counted 25 bedrooms, and I don't know, it was huge. No central heating, freezing, regularly had snow on the billiard table. Every time we got a leak, we had a hip bath put under it to catch the drops. And if it got really bad, we'd buy blue tack to stick up to block up the tiles on the roof. It was really, I mean, you know, like a comedy. You wouldn't believe it. You would not believe living in a stately home then. So that's how we came there, through the death of my father's older brother, who was the firstborn male. And Tottering-by-Gently is what I remember from moving from a perfectly normal life in Oxfordshire to suddenly in this enormous stately home, like being dumped there. It was like being dumped on planet Mars. And so in my head that lived on, even though Broughton has undergone a huge change and it's now at the level of Claridge's and it's a well-being centre, and it's amazing now. But back then I based the strip on my memories of how we lived there. So that tells you how it came about. The family trying to live in a crumbling stately home with, in my father's time, there were 22 indoor staff. And when we moved up there, we had one woman who in the strip is called Mrs. Shagpile, who is a useless cleaner. But actually, I'm not even sure we had a Mrs. Shagpile. I think basically we didn't clean. I remember the dogs used to pee in the hall on the pillars regularly, and nobody did anything about it. You know, it was like that. It was bonkers. It was very, you know, mad.
I mean, the cartoons they're very easy to like in a way, because they're an enormously affectionate portrayal of a kind of eccentric English aristocratic life, and they have a very gentle humor and kind of poke fun at themselves in a way. And
yes, and this one you've got up on the screen just then. This is where I like to highlight the differences between the old generation and the new. So here we have the girl I've brought in called Storm, who is in fact based on my brother's partner, who is a young yogini and sound healer, who runs you know, sound bars and things at the hall now, actually in conversation with the older generation, which is based now on me, whereas Daffy, and you know, it's interesting to comment on that and how we find that difficult with this all the woke world, and it's a receptacle for me, sort of gently pointing out that you know, we're all going through this. There are generations in every family. This is a very universal thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's a very British kind of humor in a way, and I was wondering how well it travels, because humor is something that's notoriously difficult to translate. I mean, I'm talking to you from my home in France right now, and you know, I know, for example, there are certain jokes that I could tell that just won't work, and vice versa. You know, humor is very particular to something very particularly related to an individual culture. So what I'm basically asking in a long-winded way is, does the kind of humor in your cartoons, do you think it works well in other, I mean, presumably they're translated into different languages?
No, we don't translate.
Okay.
But I have exhibited in Paris. I've exhibited in Spanish-speaking countries. I've exhibited in New York. I've exhibited in all over the world, really, Mexico. And the reason that they are popular globally is because, you know, think about it. We're human beings. All I'm doing is commenting on the things that unite us: the family, gardening, food, drink, dogs. They're things that it doesn't matter where you're from. I'm not commenting on politics, and I only laugh. You know, my big rule with cartoons is to laugh with and never at. Mm-hmm. That's a key to I think to the success of the strip. Anybody from 8 to 80 can look at it. Nobody will be offended by it, because it's a way of bringing joy into the world. That's very much it comes from my heart to give you pleasure and to just point out the foibles of being a human being.
Well, I think I'm a big fan of cartoons. I think it's a wonderful medium, and I think they can, unlike yours, they can, if they want to be, can be fantastically searing and I mean, in a way, more powerful than a photograph.
Absolutely. I mean, look at Gerald Scarfe's work. It can be very, very. They're very, very strong art form. But the way I work has always been to just. To try and raise a smile. They're not funny jokes. They're just a smile of recognition. And if you don't know it's you know somebody who it is. And that's kind of been my life's work, really.
And how did your family react to finding themselves portrayed in a not always flatteringly in a cartoon series?
Well, Dad loved being Lord Tottering. He absolutely loved it. I mean, he's no longer with us. But he loved it, and particularly as the brand grew and we brought in lots of things like Tottering champagne and stuff like that. He said, "I'm going to go and I'm going to be Lord Tottering and model the champagne." And he'd love to come and to game fairs and things and stand there going, "I am Lord Tottering, drinking Lord Tottering champagne," you know. But I was only worried really about the children, because I brought the children into it from when they were born. Because, you know, to be good, you've got to be working from life and your experience. And I did worry when I brought them in when they were in 2 and 4, that when they were teenagers, this could be a big problem. But, you know, it never was. And they used to be in competition. And Daisy would come to me saying, "Freddie's been in it more than me." And Freddie would go, "Yeah, well, I'm more interesting," you know. And it never developed into a problem. Because, as I said, I wasn't taking the piss out of them. I was doing it in a kind and wry way. And so it never did become a problem. And in fact, people have paid a lot of money through charities for a cameo role in the strip.
Oh, really? Oh, how lovely.
Yeah, people love it to be in the strip. That's great. I don't do it often because I rather just have a free hand, but I have done it for charity.
James, maybe while we're talking, since we're on the subject, we could put up some pictures of the house we're talking about at Broughton Hall. I think it'd be nice to show that. It's the most amazing place, and now it's as you said, now it's fantastically smart. And I went onto the website, and it's a sort of wellness centre, which I imagine you're going to have a lot of fun with. If you're
absolutely. I mean, thank you very much, brother. I've got a whole new seam of humour coming.
I mean, it really is quite magnificent.
Although, but to me, it's home, you know. It was home. I mean, obviously, it's not my home now; it's my brother's. But and also, I can't often go and stay there anymore because you're allowed to go and stay there. You can rent it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the dining room. Now, in that dining room there, we used to, what you know, people expect in large houses that you dress for dinner. Well, we did dress for dinner because it was so damn cold. We put on full Arctic gear to go in there to eat. The kitchen was about a mile away from the dining room. So if we were in there, we'd have to put hats, gloves, coats, and we'd all sit around the table fully dressed for watching the Northern Lights.
I love that. I love that. Let me ask you a question about the process, Annie, or the cartoon, just your work process, because when you're creating cartoons for a magazine, I guess you're working to a deadline. My brother, he's a novelist, and he says he likes to listen to the whooshing sound that deadlines make as they fly past him. But I guess you're a little more self-disciplined than that. Are you good with deadlines? Are you?
Yes, a very important thing for me as an artist and as a person is to be reliable. And I haven't missed a week in 30 years of working for Country Life, not once. I haven't even taken a week off holiday. Well, you don't get holidays as a cartoonist, but I've done every single week for 30 years. I've produced, and you have to be very professional to do that. In the early days, I studied all sorts of books called The Right Brain Experience and all of the Edward de Bono books about how to train. It's literally like going to a gym for your mind, about how to generate ideas. And they have stood me in very good stead. But every Monday morning, it is literally, I go to a blank page and I fear that I will never have another idea. But like the end of a toothpaste tube, you squeeze a little bit harder. And because you're a professional, you know you have to do it. So I don't think about it until I sit at my desk and know that I have to do this week's cartoon. And I have to trust that that'll happen. And in 30 years, it's never not happened.
Well, hopefully it never will, Annie.
I know, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. I have to say, a blank page with a deadline is a terrifying thing, and it doesn't get any less scary.
Let's, before I move on to the next subject, let me just say to people watching, we're live and we would love to have your questions. I've got some coming in right now. And so if you have a question for Annie Tempest, please send it in and I will put it to her. Annie, sculpture. Let's talk about sculpture. I said recently in a different program on Viking.TV that if I wasn't a photographer, I think I would have liked to have been a sculptor, because what I miss is the possibilities of a third dimension. And I wondered if you, previously working in, well, still working, but in a two-dimensional form, felt something similar. And was that something that prompted you in the beginning to go from the two-dimensional to the three-dimensional?
Yes, it was about creating balance for me, because a cartoon is very much invented in the mind, and I felt I had a lot to give from the heart. I felt very excited by the idea of creating something that occupied space, that I could put outside of me. So I'm very interested in putting the emotions that I carry inside, channeling them through my hands to something that I can put outside my body. And that really interested me. And I joined a local adult education class. I can't remember how long ago, when I was about 50. So yeah, and I became, my first time working with clay, oh my God, I got excited. I knew that I had found the magic of life. And I honestly became obsessed. And I haven't stopped sculpting ever since that day I joined.
Because working with clay is pretty physical, isn't it?
It's physical. I love it. I need that physicality, because sitting at a desk doing tiny little cartoons, and of course my cartoons aren't just line drawings, they're watercolors. And so it takes a long time to do them. I'm a very active person, and I wasn't getting enough physicality in my life, and this answered it. It also emotionally helped me enormously to get feelings that, not as I said, it's here we have the cartoons, and there are a lot of thinking and a little bit of drawing, and here we have a lot of heart and physicality, so I can throw myself at it. And the new sculptures for the Messens exhibition are entirely physical and done as performances in a day.
But they're not. I mean, I get the impression that with the sculpture, you've gone from gentle humor to something deeper and more serious.
Very passionate.
Yeah, I'm right in thinking that. I mean,
you are absolutely right. We're not one-dimensional as human beings, and I think the nature of people is to want to keep you in your box. And because I've been in the box of a humorous person for such a long time, people are going to be rather surprised that actually not only do I have a serious side, but I'm very emotional. And this is quite a risky thing to do. I'd rather not really show my emotions, but I've put them outside of me and said, here, put that in your pipe and smoke it. My God, if you're not moved by them, well,
good for you for doing that. I mean, a lot of your sculptures that I've looked at they're essentially figurative, and a lot of them are about bodies just balanced or suspended.
Yeah.
as if they're about to fall or take a leap into space.
Yes.
What's the line of interest there? I mean, the line of...
I'm very interested in making a very heavy material look very light. It's a challenge. And movement in a very inanimate object. It's a massive challenge, and I just want to do it because it's difficult.
Well, good to you. You have a show coming up in London soon.
I do.
Is there a theme, and what kind of pieces will you be showing?
Yes, so I will show some of the earlier, more careful work, which is more anatomically accurate and stuff. But this one here that you see up on the screen here now, it's basically David Messam is an incredible gallery in London, and and he came to see my work, and he said basically, Annie, we need to find Annie Tempest in there, because I don't see Annie Tempest in these beautifully crafted things that could have been done in the 18th century. And he challenged me to go into the studio that very day and said he'd seen some sketches I'd done of conductors in the Royal Albert Hall, which I'd sketch a lot in the dark in theatres. It's something that H.M. Bateman, the cartoonist, used to do. He used to sketch in his pocket. But I sketched on my iPhone with my finger on a drawing app, and he saw those things. And he said, "Go into the studio and make one of those. Make it fast and furious and come from your heart." And I rose to that challenge. And an hour and a half later, I had a half-life size, crazy mad conductor, which I sculpted from my memory of seeing. And watching, being mesmerized by this conductor, controlling through body language alone an entire orchestra. And I just thought, wow, that is some trick. How on earth is he doing that? And I felt what he was doing, and I saw the passion, the whole of, his thalamus reflected on every muscle, trying to tell the people without voice what to do. And I went away and I sculpted it, and he came over and he said, "Right, that's Annie Tempest. Don't touch it. That's going to the foundry." And there, you see, that's where somebody like David Messam, who is a pro, can call the voice out of an artist. And I needed that kind of direction to say, "Annie, let go, be yourself, just do it." And that at that moment, this exhibition was born.
I know what you mean about conductors. I used to work in classical music in London as a photographer, and photographing conductors was always great fun.
And mesmerizing.
I mean, some more than others. There were some I knew who would just make very small movements with their fists and conducting a whole Wagnerian orchestra, and
then pianissimo, and
yeah. And then there's someone like Simon Rattle with the big hair and the gestures, but they're fantastically visual for photographs, and I can totally understand why they made great sculptures too. Well, good luck with the show, Annie.
I mean, that's and of course it ties into my long interest in gesture and body language, which is what you hone as a cartoonist. So over 40 years, I'm using all my knowledge in these sculptures that I've been doing for 40 years.
And how do you feel about openings? So are you going to turn up to the opening, or are you just going to be...
I am expected to turn up to the opening. I cannot tell you how nervous I am, because these pieces are my heart. It's like ripping my heart open and saying, "Have a poke."
Yeah.
And I am very, very scared. As a cartoonist, I don't have to go out. Nobody recognizes me. And well, you don't have to be a personality or anything. But this, they're going to see. And if they don't like them, it's going to personally hurt me. And of course, that's going to happen. There will be people who don't like them. But I've got to, I'm very emotional. I'm not a strong person. It's going to be very difficult. I have to say, I'm an artist. I don't like the selling bit. I don't like the showing bit. I want to be left alone to be an artist. And I'm afraid that's how we are. It's very childish, but that's how we are. And I don't, but hopefully I've got a very understanding gallery who have worked with artists before and know that we're quite delicate souls.
I know. I was thinking I understand the nerves. It's a bit like standing naked in a cold wind. It's
exactly how it feels.
And you're the only one in the room without clothes on. But yeah, I'm sure you'll be fine, Annie. You'll be fine.
Thank you for understanding. You've described it really well.
Well, yes. Well, in my small way, I've had the similar feelings. let's move from standing naked in cold winds to Viking cruises. You have just come back, I gather, from a cruise on a Viking ocean ship on the Viking Venus.
Viking Venus, yes.
And you went in search of Northern Lights. Did you find them?
Oh my God, did we find them? We almost got Northern Light fatigue on the third night. We'd seen so many. Well, first of all, I wouldn't have thought that I would ever go on a cruise. I mean, I really wouldn't have.
It's your first cruise?
It was my first cruise. I was a Virgin cruiser.
Okay.
I was on my own, but I did know somebody else on the boat, which was fabulous. It doesn't, I mean, what I didn't know, I thought it would be awkward to go as a single person. I thought that you'd have to talk at dinner, you'd have to sit on a captain's table and make conversation with people you didn't want to know. And I thought everybody would be drunk and with umbrella drinks and going to casinos. Honestly, I could not believe how amazing this thing was. I feel so cross that I haven't done it before. It was not only beautiful, but the I mustn't call it a boat. The ship had the most amazing artworks. It had Munch drawings on it. It had sculptures like you wouldn't believe. I mean, the level of artwork on the boat would have kept me busy without any Northern Lights. I mean, honestly, and the books and the interior, you know, had reindeer throws over the sofas, and it was so tastefully done. It wasn't anything like I imagined, I have to say. I feel a complete idiot.
No, but that's nice to hear. So nice to hear.
I want to just sell my house and go on cruises for the rest of my life.
Well, good. I'm going to stop. But while you were cruising, I know for a fact you did some paintings.
Yeah, and that was what was so wonderful, because the accommodation on these ships is, look there, look at the sunshine in there, for heaven's sake.
A little studio out of your state.
The amazing staff realised I was going to paint and thought, here's a difficult one. She's going to put splosh paint everywhere. And they covered the dressing table for me while I was out at breakfast with a perfect surface of, I don't know, plastic or something, and said, we've created a studio for you. I mean, honestly, the thoughtfulness of that was unbelievable. So I put all my paints out, and you know, artists are compelled to draw beautiful things. And although I'm not a landscape painter, I gave it a crack. And I loved it. Every day I'd go out to the Explorers Lounge and look at things, and then go back in the afternoon to have a bit of quiet time and just paint. It was heaven on earth.
Oh, that's lovely. That's beautiful. I mean, watercolors are such a wonderful thing, aren't they? They're so light and easy to carry. And,
yes.
And I mean, yeah, I really would give a lot to be able to do watercolors. I mean, that's a beautiful one there. So
it's so hard. The Northern Lights are impossible to paint. But I met other painters. There were other watercolorists on the trip. They weren't working, but I did manage to talk to people who were watercolorists. And I also gave a little lesson on, because I like to work on my iPad as well, because that is a mobile studio in itself. And I was able, Kai, who should be listening, is a friend I met on the ship. And I gave her a little lesson on how to create watercolors within the iPad, although these ones you're showing here are actual watercolors.
Right.
They're not digital.
And can you just describe the experience of seeing the Northern Lights for those of us who haven't seen them, what it's like standing underneath them?
Okay, well, I mean, it's incredible. The whole sky dances with green neon lights. And making the most beautiful patterns. Well, yeah, is that a painting or a photograph? That's a photograph.
Oh, it's a photograph. Okay.
I think that's a photograph. I can't tell. But yeah, I mean, it's the most extraordinary thing. I mean, I've seen one of the great wonders of the world in the pyramids in Egypt, and this is a wonderful one of the natural wonders of the world, to go and see the Northern Lights. How can I explain it? But I wouldn't want to be not on a ship. I mean, yes, you can go in a minibus and chase them, but everything came to the ship, you know. And the captain would say, would send a message to your cabin, say the Northern Lights are showing. So then you'd put your clothes on and go up. You wouldn't have to wait for 10 hours for them to appear, because they only appear at certain times. You get a curated Northern Light show every night. You know, they tell you when they're coming, and you go up to the deck. And then every time you come, you've been standing on deck, it's freezing. You've been watching, going, ooh, and ah, and taking photographs. And then you come back into the ship, and there's somebody there with a hot chocolate for you. It's just amazing. I can't tell you. It's so brilliant.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, in my experience of Northern Lights, I remember how their capacity to make you feel so small and insignificant, because they're so huge and just, I mean, it's nature in its most raw state in a way.
Yeah, it makes you feel so insignificant, and in fact, they were showing in Norfolk here in England last week.
Good heavens!
My friend is a celestial photographer, and she went out to the beach on the North Norfolk coast the other night and got an amazing shot of them. So you can see them in the UK sometimes, but it had not been on my radar that there was so much going on up there in the sky. I mean, it's just exciting. There's always something new to learn, and that's the other thing I love about Viking is the enrichment programs. I mean, there was a historian on board. I knew nothing really apart from school stuff about the bio-tapestry, and we had lectures on it, and I learned all about Edward the Thick, or whatever it was called, or Simple or something, and and they have a fabulous animation of the bio-tapestry, which really brings it to life, and for a dyslexic person it's amazing because you learn so much easier that way. And then there was another astronomer on board who told us all about nebulas and all sorts of things that are going on up in the sky above our petty little worlds down here. It's so interesting. Oh my God, my mind is blown.
Wonderful. That's good to hear. Annie, let me just see what we got here in terms of questions. Helen in the United Kingdom asks, maybe you know her, asks what planning next with all your art. Yeah, what do you got cooking on the back burner, Annie?
On the back burner, well, I have just spent a year completing a very major show for Messams, which starts in May in London. On the 4th of May. And I was just wondering, Helen, do you mind if I just take a little rest for a moment and not plan anything for now?
Okay. Here's two people I know, good friends, Greg and Wendy in Asheville in the US of A. To you, Annie, thank you for sharing your life journey and for reiterating that your cartoons are not funny ha-ha, but highlighting universally humorous experiences that everyone globally can appreciate.
Thank
and
you.
Alastair, so good to see you again. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Greg and Wendy. And David in Orlando. Here's a good question from David in Orlando. How is the American sense of humor different from the British sense of humor? Well, they're certainly different.
No, please tell me, David in Orlando. Do you know my cartoons? My cartoons are, it's not really a sense of humor, it's observation of human behavior. Sense of humor usually it makes me feel like people cracking jokes, and often at the expense of somebody. That's not what I do. I don't know. I don't know, Alastair, what would you think? Do you know much about the American sense of humor?
I think, no, not particularly, but I think the British sense of humor is, a lot of it is based on it's very self-effacing.
Self-depreciatory, yeah, absolutely.
It's sort of taking, turning yourself into an object of ridicule, I think, yes, in a way.
Yes, I think that's probably true.
And you know, we're very good at putting ourselves down in many ways, which I suspect the Americans are better, you know, and not so apt to do. I don't know. I'd be interested to know.
Yes, if anybody has any thoughts on that, I'd be interested.
Julia in Howard Beach says, I love your work. How did you get into it? Well, we've kind of covered that.
I slipped into it, Julia. I slipped into it, I don't know, by just teaching myself to draw and managing luck well, I think, you know, and rising to challenges. That's the thing is, I always try and say to artists, and I believe it very strongly, that you are where you are. So don't be shy to show your work, because you might get a break like I did, and then you'll rise to the challenge to get better from that. You know, never worry about work not being good enough, because I started showing my work because I hadn't been to art school and I didn't know how rubbish I was. I started showing it quite early, and it was the luck of you know, not being ashamed of it, and then somebody commissioning me to do a book of 96 drawings when I'd only ever done 3 in my life, and just saying, well, if he thinks I can do it, I'm going to give it a good try, and then just daring to do it, feel the fear and do it anyway, as they say in modern well-being speak.
Yes, go for it. Yeah, absolutely. Bill in Windsor in Canada says, I love reading cartoons in the daily newspaper and find that they are missing something when in digital form. As an artist, do you draw differently with digital in mind, since so many papers and magazines are going digital? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. And there are very few of us who draw live anymore, who can draw without digital help. Because obviously you can correct things, you can resize things. If you get the head the wrong size, you can just go whoop and make it fit. You know, it is a whole lot easier to be a digital artist. But let me remind you that, you know, my whole life, every cartoon I've drawn has an original, which is then something saleable. A digital thing you can only do prints with. So there is an intrinsic value to the few of us who are able to still use watercolors and old-fashioned methods. Charles Peaty is the, I only know two other cartoonists, so we're not a friendly bunch really. But Charles and Tony Husband are my two friends in the cartoon world, and we've all been around for 30 to 40 years. And we are very much the last of the properly using proper equipment people. Everybody else has gone digital. So we are a dying breed. It's a very rare thing. But people love to watch me draw live because, you know, not many people can do that.
No, and I wish I could. Wendy in Asheville in the US says, Annie, your enthusiasm, your passion and your heart are so contagious.
Oh,
I agree with you, Wendy. She says, I feel, and feel in capital letters, it all the way here in the US. And I so wish I could.
Wonderful.
Show opening. Every sculpture is full of emotion. What I don't understand, how do you transfer what you see, remember and feel into an actual physical piece that actually invites the viewer to also see and feel your heart? And you created one in only 1.5 hours.
Okay,
yeah, I mean,
that's a great question.
It's a fantastic question. Yeah.
It's an amazing question. And do you know, if I knew the answer to it, I would try and tell you. But I do know that when I create these pieces where I'm drawing on real emotion and memory of a physicality, I have to prepare myself very carefully. I have to make sure all my eating functions are done so that that's not going to distract me. Or I tend to listen to very loud music to drown out any mental activity. I then stalk the armature for quite a long time, and I go at it like a wild animal, basically.
Wow.
And it's a very primeval kind of thing, really. Like when you see somebody crazy playing some amazing symphony on a piano. I was married to a composer, and to watch him play, he plays naturally. He can play anything in the style of any anything. You know, he's one of those extraordinarily gifted people. And to watch that play, you cannot explain that, because you couldn't actually mentally process that in the time it takes for him to play. And I think with the sculpture, there's something similar going on. I don't know what it is, but I have access to it, and it is very emotionally tiring. After it, I practically sleep for days. I'm not saying that any others were done in an hour and a half. That was an extreme thing. But I've tried to make these to get the most out of this emotional response, and it coming, my hands being the brain, taking away from the brain and making my hands have the intelligence. I do this, you know, I can do it for 8 hours at a time, but it's like a massive tiring thing, because it's coming from a place that bypasses normal, you know, it's trance-like, it's shamanic in a way.
It's the burden that artists have to carry, Annie, I think.
Yes, it is, and it is very, very a heavy burden to carry to access that. It's a burden.
Yeah, I can imagine. Catherine in the United Kingdom says, she says, I've just been on your website, Annie, and seen the extraordinary diversity of your sculptures. How long have you been sculpting for, and are they always bronzes, or do you use other materials too? Thank you.
Okay. No, they're not always bronzes. I actually prefer to work in clay and fire it, but bronze can hold. You know, I was saying earlier about this business of trying to make it feel light and being at an angle that makes it feel almost in flight. You can't really do that with anything other than bronze. Although I do love work, and if I could, I would work in terracotta, but obviously you can't edition terracotta, and I have to pay my rent. You know, I have to pay my bills, and I've got, as an artist, you have to put a business head on and not do exactly what you want, unfortunately. So I work in many materials, and often the things you see as bronze have actually been worked in wax initially. So wax or clay, and then molds have been made of them, and then the very long process of the lost wax of ancient foundry process commences from there.
I think that, you know, I think, Annie, there's something very beautiful about bronze sculptures left outdoors.
Yes, because the patina.
I was in a museum in Paris called the Bourdelle Museum, and sculptor Antoine Bourdelle, and they have a garden there, and there's these huge bronze sculptures in the garden. And to go there when it's raining, it's just fantastic. The way that, you know, the bronze shimmers in the rain and changes color, and it's absolutely
cool. And there's a beautiful depth to bronze, which, you know, I know there was a fashion for bronze resin, and it has no depth to it. I've not done anything in that material, but when I see them, I just go, but you know, but bronze is expensive, you know. And one of the reasons I started sculpture was because I couldn't afford to buy any, and I wanted to own it. So,
right, yeah, absolutely.
I actually hate the fact that it has to be so expensive. I hate it. I'd much rather give them all away, but unfortunately we live in the real world.
Kai in Boulder in the US sent in an early question, and I think we may have kind of answered it. Kai says, how did being on the Viking ship inspire your artwork? Well, we talked about this. I'm not sure, James, have we shown two of my favorite pictures that you made on that Viking trip? And that's the one of
the oar barge.
Bromzo. Yeah, this one. No, this one, the one that's showing now, which is the sunset or sunrise. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the light was extraordinary. I mean, I don't know how to paint light, but I mean, I had a crack at it. But there was a lovely one of the one of the oar bar, the red oar barges against the blues. I loved that one. That was one of my favourites.
Oh, really? I don't think I didn't like that one so much. But,
okay.
But you know, nothing personal. But this one I love a lot. I've been to Bergen many times, and
yes, and that was just I just chucked those houses in the front there. They weren't really there, but I wanted to get the feel of Bergen.
I like the I really like the effect that has. I think it's fabulous. Mike is part of the Viking family, and she's just saying hi, and it's always she's probably our best most loyal watcher. Mike.
Oh, hi.
So you there, Mike. Just bear with me. I think we pretty much got it covered, Annie. Are we going to see you on a Viking ship anytime soon, do you think? Maybe after.
I don't think you'll be able to stop me. I haven't decided where. I want to go to Egypt again. I'm mad about. I have a bit of a crush on Ramses II.
Well, don't we all? But
I mean, why wouldn't I? It was fantastic. Reigned for 67 years. So I get, you know, there is a Viking one that goes up to Egypt. I hope to be on it one day.
Well, you know what's going to happen, Annie, is you're going to have a fantastically successful exhibition, and you're going to sell all the work on the first night, and then you can just book cruise after cruise.
That's what I'm going to do. That's a really good idea. I like that plan. I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. On the boat, on the ship. Sorry.
Janice in Bradenton in the United States says, you said that you enjoyed your Viking cruise. How will you choose your next one? Where would you like to go? There's a question.
Well, I think I've just answered that. I have been to Egypt, but I'm mad about trying. I'm terribly tempted by a river one. I've done a sea one now, and I want to experience one of their river boats. So that's where I'd like to go next. I don't care where it is, because anything would interest me. I'm just one of those people, I just love learning. And if I haven't seen it before, that's just my thing. I love it.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think you'd love the rivers, because it's all close up and personal on the river.
Yeah, you know, and also unbelievable things to paint, I imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you'll be up close, so I can paint all the time.
No, I'm a big fan of the river trips.
That's what I want to do.
Joanna in San Diego. Hi, Joanna. Says, is the sculpture behind you one of yours, Annie? I find it fascinating. I'm guessing it is.
Which one?
I think the one, the figure.
There we go, yes.
No, the other side. Yeah.
Yes, this is a young couple doing a tango.
Oh, lovely. That's great.
And this one, the other one this side is one of the new pieces, the new dancers, based on a Cuban dancer as the point of the point of starting, really, just having seen him dance, a guy called Carlos Acosta, who is unbelievably beautiful, first. I could watch him for hours. And secondly, his story is so interesting, and his body language and gesture is just incredible. So I obviously I don't use models when I sculpt. As I say, I sculpt them entirely from my heart, and I draw. I spent a lot of time doing energy drawings, which are basically scribbles in the dark while I'm watching him dance, and I took that energy in my heart and then made these pieces.
I love that, energy drawings. That's great.
Yeah.
Deborah says, we loved our Northern Lights cruise this January and seeing the lights. Will you be selling your artwork from this cruise?
Anybody can buy it. I'm an artist. Anybody who wants to buy it. I'm just not very good at putting it out there to sell, but anybody can contact me. And yeah,
Deborah,
the artwork's there. I mean, it just goes in a drawer. I'm not.
I think, Annie, I'm just looking through the questions, and I pretty much got it covered. And you've been amazing. You're a lovely person to talk to, and I love your work.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. And I'm thinking, I don't know whether this goes out on the boats, the ships, but anybody who's out there watching me on a ship, I'm very jealous of you, and I hope to meet you one day myself out on the seas or the rivers.
And I hope to see you one day on a ship, Annie. Whether it's a river or ocean, I don't care, but it'd be lovely to see you.
Lovely.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to all of you for watching and sending in your questions, and I hope it's been entertaining. So from myself and from Annie and from the team at the back, James and Heather, goodbye.